Federal Credit Union. We really thank you for coming out and spending some time with us and learning a little bit about ID theft. We have some special guests here, David Sprague, our president, and Sergeant Patrick Connor from the police department. So I'm just going to go over a few things that you have on your table. We have this book, it's called the ID Theft. What happens is it's a recovery plan. If it ever happens to you, it has all the information in here. We'll talk a little bit about it, but you have it to take home and keep, and who you need to contact, and it has a lot of information. Also, we have 10 tips to protect yourself from ID theft. Again, great tips, what to do, what not to do, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then lastly, the most important part is the feedback page. So we'd like to do more of these here, and I already spoke to Robert, and he is very welcoming and will have us again. So we'd like to know what topics you'd like to see in the future. So if you can do that, that would be great. And then at the end, we collect them all, we put them in a bag, and there will be one lucky winner. Someone will win a $25 American Express gift check. So you can take someone else out to lunch. How about that? So without further ado, I would like to introduce David Sprague and Sergeant Patrick Connor.
Well, let me extend my thanks for joining us this afternoon. It's an unfortunate topic. Truth is that identity theft is an epidemic in this country today. And I think the reason that it's an epidemic is that it works. So we are all susceptible to it. Those of us who are older or seniors are particularly susceptible because of either physical or cognitive impairment that we undergo. So that, in addition to being potential victims of fraudsters and scammers, you're also potentially be taken advantage of by a caregiver, whether that's someone in your family or someone that you've worked with to assist you as you age. Part of the reason that we're involved in this is that because we are kind of on the front line of this, we see the impact for our members that get taken by fraud and scams. And I'd like to just start off with a couple of examples that we've seen in the last few months, although these are by no means limited to, unfortunately we see this a lot. And as a result of that, we've trained every person on our staff on identity theft and how to be aware of it, what to look for, and then also how to help our members be protected by it. But one of the frustrating things for us is that sometimes when we identify a fraud or a scam, and then we'll reach out to our members and say, we really don't think this is a legitimate transaction that you're trying to put through. They sometimes have been taken in by a fraudster that they don't believe us. Sometimes we're able to assist them and prevent it, but unfortunately sometimes people insist they'll go through the transaction. And one that I found particularly frustrating a few months ago was a gentleman who owned a timeshare, and it was in a foreign country. And like many people that own timeshares, he wasn't using it and wanted to get rid of it. And somehow had gotten connected with a firm that would theoretically sell the timeshare for him, but he had to wire them $20,000 in advance to get the process started. And that's a kind of a typical scam, is when someone is going to do something for you, then they demand money in advance. Nothing works that way. Typically, if you're going to contract for a product or a service, they deliver the product or service, and the money exchanges hands at the same time. We tried to explain to this gentleman that it was a fraud, but he insisted that it was legitimate and made us wire the $20,000, which he ultimately lost. So that was very frustrating for us because he easily could have been saved from that. Another one that I find particularly frustrating is when you have someone as a family member. We had an 83-year-old woman who had been a member of the credit union for many, many years. And then people in our call center noticed one day when she had signed up for online account access, which she had never used before. And then in monitoring the transactions, we employ, in addition to our employees, we have sophisticated software that we look for out-of-pattern transactions to help protect our members from fraud. And we noticed a number of fairly large transfers that were really out of the pattern of what she had done with us for many years. So we called her, and in talking to her, it turned out that her granddaughter had access to her personal information, and once she had access to that, was able to use that to convince us that we were dealing with her over the telephone. But anyway, we were able to stop that one, and she didn't lose any money. But it's really kind of disheartening that a family member would take advantage of a person like that. So a lot of it is really just being skeptical. So the typical frauds that we see are people, one of the common ones is the IRS calling. The IRS will never call. They won't send you an email. They're not going to look for cash to settle something. They're not going to throw you to jail. The IRS deals strictly through the U.S. mail. And unfortunately, not that I've had a lot of dealings with the IRS, but when they've questioned things on my wife and I's tax returns, it always came in the mail, and usually got resolved through the mail. You don't have to talk to anybody. One of the other ones is the grandparent scam, where someone will call up impersonating a grandchild, saying that they've been in an accident, or they've been arrested, or they're in some sort of trouble, but they don't want their parents to find out about it. So they ask the grandparent to send some money. This actually happened to a friend of mine's son when he was in college. They called the grandfather and talked him into sending $2,000 for Justin. Justin had been in no trouble at all. Someone was just impersonating him, and unfortunately, his grandfather, he loved his grandchild, so he wanted to help him out. So I think the important lesson under all of this is, just you have to be skeptical. And when someone does either call or email you, don't assume that they are who they purport to be. You can get their information. Don't call them back on a number or email them back at an email address that they've provided. Look it up yourself. Call a number that's published in an independent party, and get back to them that way. And that way you can verify if it's a legitimate call or email or not. One of the other things we advise our people to do is at least annually check your credit bureaus. That's free. There's information available on how to do that. So it's good to just keep an eye on that. Look at your bank statements every month. If you have online account access, check it more often. But make sure you recognize the transactions that are impacting your accounts, and that will help save you in the long run as well. And then finally, but in addition to that, there are a lot of government resources. We've given you this book from the Federal Trade Commission. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has excellent resources available on their website. And then finally, and part of the reason that Sergeant Connor is with us today is law enforcement is your best friend. If something goes wrong, that's who our first and foremost advice is we will do what we can to help you get out of it, but it's also to make sure that the law enforcement is aware of it so that they can intervene on your behalf. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Connor.
Sure. Thank you very much. How is everybody today? Good. Most of you guys Tewksbury residents? Yes. Great. Awesome. So the reason why I'm here today is to try to give you some real-life examples of what we commonly see in Tewksbury. I would say this is probably... Sure. This is probably one of our most common crimes that is being reported. We get a lot of walk-ins from residents in the towns regarding scams, or maybe they sent money to via MoneyGram, or they went to Walmart and they sent money and they just weren't sure if they ended up getting scammed. So a couple of the scams that we commonly see, I'm just going to reiterate, is you get a phone call, they're saying that somebody is either arrested or they need bail money, and they want you to go to Walmart and they want you to send a MoneyGram or a money order to an individual who may be in California. Those are probably the most common, especially with the IRS scams as well, where they say you have an arrest warrant, and if you don't pay this money, then you're going to end up being arrested. All of those calls are bogus, they're fake, but they seem pretty convincing on the phone, and a lot of people end up paying that money, whether it's they think their grandchild is actually in jail, or they think that they are going to be arrested if they don't pay the IRS. Those are the things that you need to watch out for. If you get a phone call and it's a scam, or you think it's a scam and you're wondering if you should pay it, don't hesitate to call the police department and let them know, because we commonly see these. We put them out on our social media, our Facebook, of the scams that we're commonly seeing, just to try to give you guys an idea of what's going on out there. I know when we had kind of an uptick in the grandchild scam, we put it out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, just to warn the residents of this, you might be seeing this scam. Some other things that we commonly see, people walk in saying that their cars were broken into and their credit card information has been used somewhere else, whether it be Home Depot, Target. There is an organized crime group called the Felony Lane Gang. Basically, it's a group of thieves who travel throughout the United States. They're kind of based everywhere. A lot of times it's Florida, New York, Georgia, down in that area, and they travel. And what they do is they break into motor vehicles, usually unlocked motor vehicles. They'll steal information, they'll steal checkbooks, they'll steal licenses. And what they do is they have oftentimes females, they put on a couple wigs, they'll go to the banks that the checkbooks are for, and they'll go write $1,000 checks, $1,500 checks out to themselves. They'll try to cash the checks, and then they'll just go from bank to bank to bank doing this. And oftentimes it works. We get a lot of reports about the Felony Lane Gang. We're part of kind of a database where we get to see all the different communities that are dealing with this, and it's the same problem everywhere. It's cars getting broken into, identities being used, and money that's being lost. So we take a lot of reports for that. So in regards to that, I would say make sure every car, every time you take your car out, you lock your doors, and if you can, take the things out. Take your license with you, take your debit cards with you. Try not to leave your checkbooks inside your motor vehicle. Obviously, social security cards and birth certificates and stuff like that shouldn't be in your vehicle, because if somebody gets a hold of that, they can go open up a loan in your name. And a lot of stuff's done online now too, so you don't have to physically be at the place. You can go right online, open up a credit card, get a bank account, try to buy a car, all with stolen identity, and that's kind of commonly what we're seeing. In regards to the phone calls, I would recommend never giving out your social security number, never giving out your birth date, even your name at that. If somebody's calling you and they're just addressing you by your last name and they're asking for things, most often it's a scam. What I would recommend is, if they're calling saying they're the IRS, or they're calling saying that they're a certain company, just hang up and call that company back and say, did you just call me? Because a lot of times they're just trying to get over on you, saying, we had an issue with your account, we need you to verify some information, and now you're giving them your personal information. So that's kind of a thing that you gotta watch out for, is the phone calls, the people that are trying to kind of scam you as salespeople, stealing your information. You just hang up, call these people back, and you can verify that way. A couple of the other things that we commonly get reports on are the credit card skimmers. Has anybody heard about the credit card skimmers? So kind of what they are, there's kind of two different ones. There's ones that get put on ATM machines or gas station pumps. It basically just goes over the debit card port. It's a whole nother device, and what it does is every credit card that goes in, it's just reading the numbers off the credit card, and then once they're done, after, let's just call it a month, they take that information, and then they make blank credit cards with all the numbers they've received. So some of these people are geniuses. They just gotta, put it to legal things.
Is there a way of being able to tell if something's wrong?
So that's what I was gonna say. So when you go up to a gas pump, you go up to an ATM, sometimes they're put on there real nice, but sometimes it's just double-sided tape. So if you just touch the port, feel it, and just, you can shake it even a little bit. And if it seems wiggly, or if it seems like it might have been manipulated, sometimes they're falling off when you go up there and people are still trying to put their debit cards in there. But what you should do is just notify, if it's a bank, notify the bank, notify the police department if you have to, because a lot of times people are just sticking it right on the gas station pumps. You put your credit card in, all you have to do is just feel it, and you can usually tell that, something just doesn't feel right, because they should be sturdy, they're pretty hard plastic, and they should be affixed to the actual pump itself. Again, if something seems wrong or if something seems off, just notify somebody and use a different pump. Let's see what else we have. Houses too. I know I touched upon motor vehicles, locking those. Make sure you lock your houses. We don't have a ton of house breaks, especially lately, but what I would say is that a lot of people aren't just kicking in doors or smashing windows. A lot of times it's just knocking on the front door. If nobody answers, they're opening up the door and going inside, they're stealing information. So just keep everything locked up at home. If you have a safe, lock up, items that, like social security cards, birth certificates, cash, jewelry, anything of that nature. I'm no expert on identity theft. What I would say is that if you have any questions in regards to it or any concerns, just call the police department and we'll try to, best help you. And if there's any other questions, not even so much in regards to identity theft, if there's any questions that you might have in regards to anything else that's going on in Tewksbury, don't hesitate to ask.
So just to follow up, if you have been a victim of identity theft, what you can expect. So does anyone experience this that you'd be willing to share? You have. It was a pain, wasn't it?
Yes, I work for the government, and someone stole my new government credit card as it's going through Logan Airport. And I live in Massachusetts, and in New York, we're buying laptop computers with this credit card. They had made up a fake license with my information.
Yep.
But they made themselves 20 years younger. And, but they caught them. This is what bothered me. In New York City, they caught them because the company, it was the Wiz or something, the company where they were buying these laptops, they had a machine that they could check out the licenses. They found out it was fake and they were arrested. They kept giving the police different names and things, and they couldn't find out who they were, and they let go.
Yep. So part of the issue with identity theft is there have been so many data breaches over the last 10 or 15 years, so your personal information gets compromised. And I know with the Equifax breach, I think it was about 2 years ago, my wife, myself, and one of our children, we found out our information had all been compromised. We didn't have any transactions against us. We ended up putting credit freezes, which you could do that with the main credit reporting agencies. So we put a freeze on that so no one could take out credit in our name. If someone did happen to take out credit in your name, you wouldn't be liable for that. I mean, ultimately there'd be an investigation on how it came to be, and most likely your financial institution would figure out it really wasn't you that did it. Maybe the signatures don't match, the addresses, something will be off. So you won't have liability for it, but you will have the pain in the neck of working with your financial institution to clear that up. If they somehow gain access to your deposit accounts, your checking accounts, savings accounts, money market, that type of thing, that's even worse, because if they actually get money out of your account because they've somehow gained access to it illegally, your financial institution really isn't on the hook for that. That's your loss, which is, I think, very unfortunate. And it will involve what we end up doing when we have members that have that sort of problem, is we end up closing their accounts and opening them totally new ones, so that we just shut it right down altogether. But you take that over, and most people have more than one deposit account, they have multiple loans or credit cards, so freezing all of those and starting over is pretty labor and time intensive. So that's the real pain of it, even if you don't end up losing any money. It's just really inconvenient. One of the advantages of credit cards is the way MasterCard and Visa work. You have zero liability for fraudulent transactions, so those are the responsibility of your financial institution. So there is some protection by using a credit card over writing checks or cash, so that is an advantage for doing that. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. So with that, I don't know if you have anything else, or we can open up the questions.
I was going to say, if anybody has any questions in regards to identity theft, questions that they might have had that they wanted to ask, or in regards to anything else, now's the time.
Yes.
I just want to ask the officer, you kind of have to keep your car registration in the back?
The car registration, yes, I would keep it in the car, in the glove box. That's something that you need in there.
Yeah, but then they actually name an address.
They do have your name and address, but there's other ways to obtain name and address. They could go, to somebody's mailbox and just take their mail. It's not so much the name and address, it's the other identifiers such as social security, the name, date of birth, kind of everything coupled together. So if you're going to apply, let's just say for a credit card, the name and address typically isn't going to fulfill what they need. It's going to be everything else. Yes, sir.
I ran across one recently, everybody's concerned about telephone calls and getting messages on the internet or whatever, but one of the things they've been trying to tell people, unless you have something in the mail, but there was one on, actually I ran across it on Facebook just recently, where looked like it was from the IRS, and it was a fake phone number, it was a fake ID, the whole 9 yards, but it looked exactly like a notice you would have received from the IRS, but it said, please, according to the IRS, you owe like $350 or something, please remit a check and amount $350, and it said, send it to this address, and it looked very official, and it said Austin, Texas or something, and then it said, if we determine you don't know it, we'll mail you the money back. I thought it was kind of funny, but
Sounds like a
this
great
stuff
scam.
is coming through in that.
I got that on
Snail mail.
Yeah, I've seen it on the phone multiple times. They called me about 2 weeks ago when I was trying to play around with them a little bit, but they hung up on me. I've never seen it through the mail like you were referring to. That seems like it would be a little bit more believable, at least to most people. So again, anything where you have to pay money, it might be worth just making a phone call to the IRS, and in that instance, it's just checking it out, just making sure. In the back?
You had said that as far as liability, if your accounts are compromised, that with a credit card, that there is a limit on that. Can you talk about the pros and cons of credit versus debit cards?
Sure. So Visa and MasterCard rules are different for debit and credit cards. So on credit cards, there's zero liability for fraudulent transactions. So you could dispute that. It's all highly regulated by the federal government. And as far as the timeframes that your financial institution will have to resolve this and what they have to do, they also have to give you provisional credit once you dispute it until they make a final determination as to whether or not it was a legitimate transaction that you made or whether it was someone who fraudulently accessed your account. That protection does not exist on debit cards, so you would get additional protection on a credit card. So that's an important distinction, and thank you for asking the question. So I think there was another question way in the back.
Yeah, the lady was talking about registrations. 2 weeks ago, I went to renew my registration online. I did a Google search, Massachusetts registration, went out to the site, looked exactly like the one that I usually renewed on. The only difference was at the end, they were asking for a $16 service fee, which the DMV doesn't ask. And then I went and looked at the exact address, and it was different from mass.gov, but everything else was exactly the same. And I could have easily, without that service charge, put in my credit card information.
Absolutely. That happened to me about a year ago with Amazon. I was trying to fix one of the kids that Kindle that we bought, and I went to the wrong website, but it was similar. And I got all the way to the point where I was just about to enter my credit card information, and I just stopped, and something seemed a little weird, so I hung up and then called the actual Amazon, and clearly it was not the right website. But those things do happen, and obviously if a website is just so close, sometimes it's just hard to, it's hard to see.
Who do you report someone?
So you can come down to the police department and report it down there, especially if you pay the service fee. We can do an investigation, and we work with other partners, whether it be the state police, the FBI. Obviously, in that case, with it being a website, you might have to go to the FBI or a different branch. But you can come down, report it, and we'll walk you through the right steps on who else we can contact and who else can work on the case.
I'd like to just add, that was actually a really good question. So really being careful when you are going to a website that it's really the one you think it is, because they do try and spoof them, as you've seen. The other issue is when you get an email, particularly if you're getting an email from some you're not expecting, or if it has an attachment. So be very careful before clicking on an attachment or opening an attachment. Try covering over whoever sent it to you to see if it's really an email address of someone that you could know or might be legitimate, but you really don't want it. There's a lot of viruses trying to infect your computer system, so keep your antivirus software up to date, and then be skeptical of emails that you receive. Don't automatically open them. Think about it. We spend a lot of time with our employees basically trying to frighten them into not clicking on attachments and emails, and constantly reminding them how dangerous that practice can be. So that's a really good point. I think there was a question up front.
Yes, it's not a question, it's just something that happened to me. I have an AT&T email account that goes through Yahoo, and I got a whole series of emails from Yahoo saying that they're going to disable my account. So I sort of ignored them, and eventually they says, oh, click here. So instead, I got out of my email, went to my Yahoo account, got in, no problem, and I called Yahoo and I said, what's going on? They had no idea, so I just deleted the emails. But they could have gotten all my emails.
That was perfect scenario. That was very good to be skeptical, and again, kind of back to one of our earlier points was, when you see something, contact them directly through your own way of finding out. So you.
And I never click on their links because you don't know where to go.
That's right. I think there was another comment or question.
Oh, I was just going to say, oftentimes I get an email from someone that I know, and it simply says, oh, thought you'd be interested in this, and then there'd be a link to it. But if you hover over the person's name, you see that the domain name is
Yep.
often like .uk or .ru, and you just know that it's not your friend that sent you that.
It's worth going slowly and making sure you're dealing with who you think you're dealing with. Yes, sir.
Question of internet banking on Anscombe. My brother-in-law logged in one day and said, log back. Last time he logged in was October 22nd. He didn't log, he doesn't remember logging in. What would you recommend that we do?
Pick up the phone and call us. And we will actually investigate that. And then I think someone made the point earlier about not, your financial institution, if they do call you, they're not going to be asking you for personal information. They already have that. And they're calling you at a number that they have on file. But someone was calling and then asking you to verify who you are. That's a red flag right there. Yes?
Speaking of that, Charles Schwab is in the way for identifying you. They don't call you, you call in, down. You have to be fixing in the voice recognition system, you repeat something down, so then when you call them, they will know who you are.
Yep. Yeah, the technology is constantly evolving, and like Schwab or any financial institution, we're constantly investing in new ways to authenticate our members or our customers, so we make sure that they're protected and that other people can't impersonate them. Yes, ma'am.
Question about LifeLock, is it as good as they advertise it, is it worth it?
That's a tough one. I haven't personally purchased LifeLock. I'm a little bit skeptical about it. It doesn't mean, I hesitate to say it's not worth it because it is a valid product. But I'm not convinced totally. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. Or.
I don't know much about LifeLock.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
We've had instances where a couple of times we found out from a credit card company that someone used it for around town or wherever, even another state, and don't use it again, will send them a new one and all that, number. But they will not tell you, and it's a big company, will not tell you where it was used locally. you have a right to know where this fraud happened. You might go tell the gas station people, you might certainly report it, maybe you wouldn't go to that business again. Why won't they tell you where it happened, what business it happened at?
The charge still on your, is this on your credit card statement?
No, we don't even know what the credit card company calls.
Oh, because usually it would say on the statement where it's something you use.
Where we find out anything.
So this sounds like one where the credit card company identified that it really wasn't you, did not post the transaction to your account. I really can't speak to why they wouldn't be willing to share that, you know, that someone was using, actually, we see a lot of fraud in Florida, so someone will somehow get a hold of someone's credit card. Huh? I don't know what it is, but we use sophisticated software that kind of looks at the transaction patterns for our credit card holders. And if we see transactions that are out of pattern, they live in Massachusetts, you know, they bought, I don't know, gas at a gas station yesterday in Tewksbury, and today there's a bunch of charges at a Walmart. Typically what they do is they do a lot of they'll do a couple of test transactions for small amounts, and then a typical thing is to go into Walmart and buy gift cards. Because they can turn that into cash. So we and all credit card companies will monitor for that. Why they wouldn't be willing to say, yeah, someone...
You know, they'll say it happened in Tewksbury or in Florida, somebody's charging, you know.
I think to a certain extent they really don't have all that much information. They know it wasn't you, but they don't know who it was.
Yeah, well, I just like to know when it's local.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always seem to be able to get that information. I don't know why they wouldn't give it to you, but if you come into the police department and report your car lost or stolen, and maybe it was used at a CVS down the street.
But they weren't lost or stolen, they must have got that number some other way.
Right, well, regardless whether you have possession of the card or not, and you think maybe there's a fraudulent purchase that happened, oftentimes when we call them, they'll tell us the exact time, the exact location, and then we often go down to that location, we'll pull the video surveillance and be able to see. The online ones are a little bit more difficult because, you know, if somebody's using your credit card online in Texas, it's a little bit more difficult to track down. But the ones that happen locally or the ones that happen in store, even if it's North Andover or Lawrence or Andover, we can go down there and just check the video surveillance. Anybody else?
When you referred to the gas pump, you were referring to the slot that you put the card in and test that as far as whether it's loose?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
the actual slot. Yeah, and like I said, a lot of times they're not done very good. It's just a couple pieces of tape, double-sided tape, and they're stuck on there. And then other times, you'd never be able to get it off. I don't even know how they get it off sometimes. But it's on there nice and sturdy. So you give it a little shake, a little pull. If it seems like it's intact, you know, I'd go ahead and use it. If it feels like it's wiggly or it just doesn't seem right, maybe jump to another one and report it.
Are you using that a lot too, Gary?
We have seen it, yeah. The Speedway down on Andover Street, I saw it there. And it doesn't happen a ton, but it happens. And usually people coming from out of state, they'll come up into a hotel in this area, and they'll put the skimmer on, and they'll just collect credit card information, and then usually they'll go and get any type of gift card or cards from Walmart that aren't activated. They'll steal those, and then they'll be able to transfer the new card numbers that they got from all the people that they were scamming and put them onto the gift cards. So now when they're going into the stores, they're using gift cards, but it's actually somebody's credit card information. So, pretty ingenious ideas. Yes? Say that one more time, please.
You know, the gas station in Tewksbury.
It happened then?
A while ago, what happened then was trying to manipulate my card, credit card. Like normally they'll go inside and the credit card went inside and then phone call. And I just didn't come back and then I reported to you.
Yes, sir.
And then I went home and I used the card. So I don't know what happened. By the way, on the way back, I saw it was involved. everything was going.
If you ever had questions in regards to the case, you can always come down and get the full report and just see how it ended on our side.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you come down Monday through Friday, around 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, they'll be able to give you a copy of the report. Anybody else?
Okay. Well, we'll be here for a few more minutes, so thank you for coming. I can see there's still plenty of food in the back, so if you'd like to have another sandwich or a cookie, and I hope this was helpful, and we can be happy to chat with you offline. And again, enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you very